Good morning, everyone, and it's afternoon my time. I'm Deborah Ann Albert, and I'm the founder of Young Women Code. And I'm so excited to have all of you here for this conversation. Whether you're joining us from your office, your home, or somewhere in between, thank you very much for taking time to be part of this. Today, we're here to talk about something that affects all of us, investing in women. And when I say investing, I don't mean just financially. I mean investing in their ideas, their skills, their leadership, and benefits, basically. We all know that, like, women, when you give a woman something, they multiply it. Women in leadership and in companies that hire diversely, they're the ones leading the companies. But yet somehow we still have women receive less than 2% in venture capital funding. Somehow female founders are still being asked if they can handle running a business and family at the same time, as if aren't parents. The reality is that women don't need to prove they're capable. They just need to be given the same chances. That's why we're here today. This is not just a seminar, it's a chance to challenge old systems, hear from people who are actively making a difference, and most importantly, figure out what we can do next, because this isn't just talking. Action is what moves the needle. So to our speakers, our panelists, and to everyone that's tuning in, let's have a great conversation today. Let's be honest about the challenges that women in tech are facing, and women in the venture space are also facing, so that we can leave this space today with something important and something that we can work on. So thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to YWC's International Women's Day Seminar, and I am delighted to be your host.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Deborah, for hosting this today. For me, I am just happy for starters to be here. I hope everyone is in good spirits and ready to have this conversation. Please feel free to keep the chat session going, drop an emoji, say something. The idea is for us to engage. The idea is for us to grow. And conversations like this should never be boring and stuff. So please make sure that you engage in the comment section. Tell us what you think, as speakers are going to be unpacking on their different experiences, sharing their knowledge. Tell us what you think. Tell us what your experience has been, and let's just keep this conversation on fire. First things first, are we happy to be here?
Very grateful, yeah.
Absolutely. So allow me to start by immediately introducing our speakers. So for today's panel discussion, who are going to be joining me for this conversation. So first, we've got Vanessa. Vanessa, please drop some emojis. So when I introduce you, drop some emojis so that people get to identify you, and you can unmute yourself and greet everyone. And allow me to read her bio. Vanessa is the co-founder and principal of Global Female Investment Management LLC. Her career in the financial services industry is marked by her strategic acumen and a profound commitment to fostering relationships with investors and clients. Vanessa's tenure in leading financial institutions has been characterized by deepness in defensive marketing and her zeal for nurturing impactful long-term client-investor relationships. At the heart of her professional philosophy lies a deep-seated belief in the power of strategic partnership. I'm a strong believer of that one as well. To drive organizational success, she lives in New York City and loves spending time with her family, exploring the city, snowboarding, enjoying a good beach, and traveling the world. Hello, Vanessa. Hope you're doing well. Um, our next speaker, please do not kill me because I think I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. And also, I'll take it as an opportunity for you to teach me how to say it as we go through this conversation. Dr. Kum, Kum, Kumla, please help me there.
It's Khushbu Kullar.
Sorry.
Khushbu Kullar.
Okay. Pushko, did I say it right?
Yeah, you can call me Khush.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Kush. Um, she is a venture partner at Lighting, Venture Lighting in the USA. She's a venture capitalist and has invested in 40 plus Bitcoin and for startup till date. And it's not, I found once syndicate GTM and partnership advisor who Bitcoin startup, ex-banker, venture capital in Bitcoin and native startup, academic qualification. She is a PhD holder in economics, energy security, and MS in venture creation from National University of Singapore. Please say hi to everyone else in the chat session. Dr. Kush. I think you are muted.
Oh, so sorry. Thank you, Sharon. Hi, everyone. So glad to be here.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much. I hope you're going to find yourself some nice time in this conversation. Our next speaker is Evelyn. Evelyn is the pioneer of a health executive and impact venture committed in building Africa's impact investing economy with focus on supporting female-owned small and medium-sized enterprises. As the founder of a eHealth Africa EHA clinics, Impact Ventures, she brings vast knowledge and expertise to supporting SMEs over a decade in the health sector. She led fundraising efforts that brought about in over 250 million. This is massive. Contributing to eradication of power in Nigeria and containers in Ebola in West Africa. Through her work, Evelyn has seen firsthand the challenges of implementing projects and running companies in Africa, including infrastructure, security, and corruption. Believing that supporting the local economy and business ecosystem is key to sustainable changes, she co-founded EHA Impact Ventures in 2021 to invest in high impact businesses. In addition to being a thought leader in impact investing, she frequently speaks about gender investing and social impact and health tech in Africa at conferences and public forums. Evelyn, we are happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, and sorry for the long bio, but I appreciate
it. No. It's not even a problem because we need to appreciate the work that you do. You know, we need to be aware about the work that you do. So more than happy to have that bio. And then our next speaker, okay, please help me. It's Isabel Chow.
Isabel Chow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Perfect. I hope I said it right. She is the vice president at Forge Ventures, where she leads end-to-end investment in exceptional founders across Southern Asia, pioneer of moving to Singapore and to venture. She spends most of her career helping build the tech ecosystem in the Philippines, where she held key operator roles in high growth tech companies. She is also an advocate for women-focused communities, serving as an executive member of the Women in VSEA organization and acting as the co-founder of the Philippines Female Founders Circle. Welcome once again, Isabel.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So those are our speakers. Please show them some love, drop some emojis. What are you looking forward to during this conversation? Allow me to dive straight into it with our panel discussion. This is directed to Vanessa. With women-led tech startup receiving only a small fraction of venture funding, how can female fund managers and investors help shift the tide to ensure that more women in technology have access to capital?
Yeah, so I know we reviewed bios, but what I've been working on over the past 13 months is I co-founded an organization called Global Female Investors Management with the former CEO of 100 Women in Finance. And what our organization is targeted to do is really focus on female investment professionals, both employees of employers and fund owners. And what we've learned over the past, we started in January of last year, this idea kind of was brewing for a few months before we initiated. What drives capital is relationships, right? Building relationships, having very strong relationships. The guys kind of do it naturally. You know, they're going to drinks, they're golfing, there's more of them in the office, so they're chatting, during the day. Typically, women who are investors or leaders, they're either doing it on their own, and they go off on their own, and they don't build the relationships before they do it. Or they are sitting amongst a group of individuals where they cannot seem vulnerable, right? So building those relationships, I have found, has been key in driving capital to you, whether you're a portfolio manager or you're, an entrepreneur or business owner. So what we say is, what we're working with our investors to do is to build those relationships before you even go out to do your venture, before you even go out to do your fund, right? Know who you need to meet, why you need to meet them, and strengthen those relationships, because at the end of the day, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, right? We all know that that's the way that goes around, right? And so does capital, right? Just think about after the financial crisis in 2008, right? All those men fund managers lost all of that money, but when the market turned around, who got all the capital again? Right? The same guys who lost all the money and, did very poorly. So it's really a relationship business from my perspective. It's building, it's networking, appropriately networking, right? Finding the right individuals to speak to, not be shy in asking for, a chat, whether it's virtual or in person, and attending the right gatherings, the right industry conferences, the right platforms like these where you can interact with other women, typically other women who are doing something very similar. And just don't go hard with an ask. Come in, as your true authentic self and talk about what it is you're doing and why you're passionate, and people will start to see that come through. So for me, it's relationship. Capital is very relationship driven. We all know that we're better than men, right? Like we know that, right? It's really about building the same relationships that they do and strengthening those.
Sure. Man on man. So please forgive me when I looked up, because I'm also trying to write some notes. I need to capture this as much as I can. Man on man, when you say that, it makes so much sense, because the guys, they're often chilled with each other. They share notes. They are not afraid of the other person knowing maybe who their source is. They don't gatekeep, for lack of a better word. And I
Yeah.
think as women, it's something that we need to start making it a culture. I think it's emanates from the culture, from a culture first. The
Yeah.
moment we make it a habit to associate with each other, to work with each other, and not see the next sister or female doing the same thing as me as competition,
Yeah.
but actually see them as possibly a soundboard that you could share notes with, an advisor or something, so that we collaborate for greater good, and just give birth to amazing businesses and create generational wealth. So I love the fact that you are into strategic partnership as well. So that also speaks into that, the ability, to get that capital. So in your view, what are the biggest structural challenges that female fund managers face when trying to raise capital for tech focused investments, and how can they navigate these obstacles?
The biggest, and this is something we're working on every day, the biggest structural changes is that everything is very opaque, right? When you're working with institutional capital, when you're working with private investors, who are those family offices? Nobody knows, right? Unless you're working with them on a day-to-day basis, or you're going to these very small gatherings. Who are the institutional investment consultants working with? They all have emerging manager programs. They all have, female programs, and minority programs, but they're not as clearly out there, right, with how to do's and who to go to. So that's actually something we're working on, is kind of peeling back and asking the tough questions. How does a female fund get capital from you or get capital from your clients? And that's, these are some they're not going to change, right? These structures are not going to change. This is how these firms make money. This is how these people make money. But little by little, it's, to your point, sharing information amongst ourselves, which is what our network and our company is really trying to do, is create resources. There's no how-to book on this, right? It's kind of figuring it as we go. And so we're learning the resources. The structural changes are not going to happen. To your point, it's cultural, right? It's cultural, it's structural, systemic. It's very difficult to change that. But little by little, I think that when we go to the sources and ask the right questions and find out what processes there are, who the right contacts are, and we start sharing that information, that's where we're going to see the change, right? Is not gatekeeping. Oh, this person funded me, they were great. Not say, oh, I'm keeping them all to myself. Well, they have plenty of capital, and that they're investing in this type of venture space. Introduce them, make that introduction, right? It's not going to affect the capital that they gave you. And it's kind of just putting your guard down a little bit and trying to share the wealth in a better sense of the term. There's tons of obstacles out there. I don't think we're going to be able to change them, but I think slowly we can, if I find out a little bit of information, I share it with you, Shan, and then I share a little bit with you, Isabel, right? We kind of share the information without kind of completely changing the system and helping each other.
Absolutely. All right. I really love what you're saying. Like, it's systematic, it's cultural, and it's not something that's going to change overnight. However, we just need to be intentional about doing it at the end of the day, and making sure that we share the information when we have it, because as cliche as it may sound, information is power. Some people have access to those opportunities not because they're the best at what they do or what, but because they just had that access to that information. So being deliberate about the content that we consume, the spaces that you're in. And I love the fact that you also created, a networking or organization that allows that information dissemination amongst women. So moving on to our next question. Many women struggle to break into the right investment circle, which directly impacts their ability to fund a tech startup. What are some of the real practical ways female fund owners and emerging managers can expand their network and become key players in investing in women in tech?
I think this goes for no matter what you're investing in, it's visibility, right? So it's speaking at gatherings like this, it's going to conferences and getting speaker slots. To your point, kind of knowledge is power, information is power. When you go on stage, even if you have no idea what it is you're talking about, if you say one thing, you're thought of as an expert, right? So it's visibility. I think that opens so many doors, because the second you move from that speaker slot and it's looked up as a subject matter expert, people will come to you as well. And then the engagements come to you. So I think it's a huge asset to have is and it goes to the previous question, right? It's not only relationships, it's not only sharing information, but it's visibility, giving yourself a platform, kind of coming out of your shell, talking about what it is you're doing, and looking for the right opportunities. There's lots of programs out there. CNBC runs, Bloomberg runs, that gives you kind of some polished, I don't want to say PR, but kind of polished speaking opportunities. And, you know, tighten up your pitch, right? Do pitch sessions. That's fund owners, that's, you know, entrepreneurs. You need to have a great pitch, because you sometimes only get a very small chance to tell people who you are and, you know, what you're looking for. So it's visibility, and then really rehearsing what you're trying to convey to folks.
Okay, having a great pitch. When you say that, I'm reminded of my mentor who says, as an entrepreneur, your pitch should always be ready, because you may never know who you meet. Be it in a coffee shop, be it on your ride to work, be it in a queue to receive. Like, you may never know who you're going to meet. So at least have the basics at the top of your mind, such that when you present yourself. And this is one thing that men do. It's not like it's magical. It's not like they have no. They
and
do
it's never
immediately.
Perfect. And it's never perfect, right? But they always have something to say.
Yes. I'm reminded of an incident where we went for a double date, and then the next thing the guys start talking, and they're like, "No, let's hit each other up on Monday, and we talk about this more and how we can work together." Just like that. This is a social gathering. But in that particular moment, one was able to say, "This is what I do. I hear you do this," and immediately they were interested in working with each other, or just explore that relationship. Really, exactly. So, yeah, always have a pitch ready, ladies, wherever you go. Sorry. Always have a pitch ready. All right, technology. All right. Sorry about that. So moving on, how many women struggle to break into the right investment circles with direct impact, which directly impacts their ability to fund tech startups? What are some of the real and practical ways female founders, sorry, I'd already gone through that one.
It's kind of all related, right? Like all of these tips kind of are all related to get the visibility, right? To attend the right conferences, to not be afraid to step in and interrupt, like a group of people talking. So it's okay that you're repeating, because it's all very similar skills that you need to kind of have when you're going, when you're out there.
Absolutely. So the tech industry is often seen as a high growth, yet female funds and startups are still underfunded. How do we shift the perception of women-led tech ventures from being seen as risky or niche to being recognized as high-value investment opportunities?
So I'm not in tech or VC, but this is kind of a problem we see cross asset class, cross industry. It's something that really is hard to change. And I think a lot of it is on the women who have been successful, right? Advancing their visibility and showing that they have done it with their data and their platforms, and getting them more visible. So it's, if you're not running your organization, but you have a female senior who is, push that female to get out there, to do some speaking stuff, to be more visible, because you only see, this is the men thing, right? They sat around at the table. You want to work with people and do what you're seeing in your own self, right? So you want to work with people who look like you, who think like you. If we see more women, getting the capital, being successful, getting the funding, growing their businesses, then we will all collectively know that we can also do it, and it will show the world that we can also do it. I think it's a really hard question that I don't really know the answer to. I think it really goes back to visibility. We all know that female and minority fund owners and investment professionals have better performance records, that diverse teams, there is data that shows that diverse teams perform better, and that females I don't want to say make better decisions, but are, tend to have a different way of thinking and are able to strategically advance, companies and firms and investment vehicles in a way that other people cannot. And the only way to kind of get that out there is to get more visibility on the women who have been successful. And it's our job to push them to do that, and advocate for them, so the world can see. But I would love to hear from, when you get to the other panelists, I would love to hear what they think too, because it's a really hard nut to crack, especially when we see I'm in New York City, the DEI backlash here in the States. You can't say diversity and inclusion anymore, right? Even in my business, we're trying to figure out another way to word that, right? Because there's a lot of talent and female talent, to be specific, right? And it is DEI, but we can't call it that anymore. So I'm interested to hear from the other panels too, like how they think in their spaces to get more visibility on us.
Okay, that's great. So the last one, if you could give one crucial piece of advice to a woman trying to establish herself as a fund manager or investment professional in the tech space, what would it be?
Build your network. Networks are key to success. They're where you go to build relationships. They're where you go to source information. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with, right? And that goes for professionally as well. I have seen my network over the past year grow substantially because of the initiative that we've launched, right? Helping females around the world grow their businesses and be better investment professionals. Utilize it. Then don't be afraid to utilize and tap into your network. I've had a very large network for a long time, and I had a very hard time tapping into it and making asks. And I'm not a shy person by any means. But it's hard to ask a network. But the only thing that could go wrong is they say no or they don't answer, right? So build a network, find the right network. Every time you go to something, make sure you're interacting with people. So when we leave here, the attendees, even I will do the same thing to the panelists if I haven't done it already. Find them on LinkedIn, send them a quick note. It doesn't need to be long. Thanks so much for speaking today. It was great to see your face. Love what you're, and then if you need them in 5 months or 6 months, you ping them again, but always build a network. I think that doesn't matter what you do for your work or what your passion is. It's building your network.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I can tell by the way you're talking, the passion in your voice, you can tell that you love what you do.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for sharing these insights. I've been writing notes. So if you are not writing notes, I think there is something wrong here because the amount of gems that are being dropped, these are some things that I think after a day or so, you just sit down and marinate over them and go over them and rehash till you get to understand some of those concepts. But key takeaway, make sure that you build your network, especially in raising capital. Who you know matters. Have a pitch ready all the time. Be visible in what you do. So it's not enough to just focus on your craft and be good at what you do, but be visible, attend the right events, speak to the right people, and don't be afraid to just inbox them. I think that's one thing that I haven't been doing, which I think I'm going to do now, to just go on LinkedIn and just inbox and say, I just seen your profile. I love what you do. Continue the great work that you do, and just use technology to build and cement some of those relationships that are going to contribute to the betterment of our organization. Thank you so much. So moving right along to Dr. Kush. Bitcoin and decentralized finance are often touted as a tool for financial inclusion, yet female founders, especially in blockchain and deep tech, continue to face significant funding disparities. From your experience, do these technologies actually level? Do these technologies actually level the play field, or a traditional venture capital better?
See, in my opinion, what I think is like the challenge isn't with the technology, it's with who controls the capital flows. So even if you look at the ethos of be it Bitcoin, Web3, blockchain, or anything, but particularly Bitcoin, which is decentralized and which offers financial sovereignty. But these ideals will only be realized if investors, they actively work to fund diverse teams. They themselves break traditional gatekeeping models and foster a more, inclusive ecosystem. So Bitcoin and decentralized finance, when you talk about, they hold immense potential for financial inclusion. In fact, female founders can leverage Bitcoin's permissionless nature and decentralized funding mechanism. And in fact, apart from VC funding, they can have, they can go for grants or community crowdfunding, which can bypass traditional gatekeepers. While if you like think about these technologies, these were designed to remove intermediaries and create a more open financial system. But the harsh reality is that funding disparities for female founders, not only in Bitcoin or Web3, it continues everywhere. It mirrors the traditional venture capital. We at Lightning Ventures try to, we do back up female founders. In fact, I can give one example of a portfolio company which is called Slice. It's an ad tech company and it's leveraging Bitcoin for payouts. And the CEO of the company is a female founder. I've had the opportunity to engage with her name is Darina, and she's a fabulous entrepreneur. And we are, really, really glad that we have her, and I think her company's success highlights how Bitcoin native businesses, if given access to capital, right support, and as Vanessa also mentioned, the network, they can scale effectively regardless of the founder's background or gender. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much about that. So first things first, the question would be, there's a persistent belief that women are underrepresented in the Bitcoin space and open source technology because they aren't building in these spaces. But could the real issue be that female-led startups in frontier industries aren't getting the same visibility or trust from investors? What are some of the structural changes? What are some of the structural changes need to happen for women to receive equal opportunities in emerging tech sectors?
See, I believe the notion that women are underrepresented in Bitcoin or open source technologies because they are not building in these spaces is misleading. Women are building. I know that for sure. I get to hear a lot of pitches where women founders are, building around it, but they don't often receive the same visibility, or I would say trust or access to capital as their male counterparts. The real
Right.
issue is the structural barriers within the venture ecosystem. There are some investors where you can clearly see they are biased. There you can see network exclusion. There's lack of representation in decision making roles. How you can clearly see statistically, you can look at their portfolio companies and see how many women founders they are backing, and then you will clearly see, oh, there's the gap. And also I have observed a pattern that female led startups in any of these industries, they often struggle to break into the closed network. This point was also highlighted by Vanessa. Where deals happen, you don't have access to these network. Many investors, they also rely on pattern matching, like funding founders who fit a familiar mold rather than evaluating companies on a metric alone. So there is a structural bias for sure, and this then disproportionately affect women, especially in Bitcoin, or be it in any, be it deep tech or be it blockchain, any Web3, where the investor landscape, wherever it is, wherever the investor landscape remains male dominated, there is a problem. And I think to level the playing field, structural changes are necessary. So for example, we
Right.
need more female decision makers in VC, or say in angel investing. Then we think that the capital will shift towards the diverse founders, and the shift has to come within the organization first, who's allotting the capital. Then there has to be alternative funding models, like I mentioned crowdfunding or grants. So there are some like we have a crowdfunding platform also, where even non-accredited investors can also invest. So it becomes easier for you to just go and directly pitch. So we are just eliminating the intermediaries in between. We are breaking the myth that it is very difficult to approach a VC. So, and then there are some certain organization which gives you grant on purely merit basis. So this is what it's needed, and this helps the women founders to bypass traditional gatekeepers. Then I think if women founders go to more media, are part of more conferences, they have visibility in media and any industry platforms that need to actively showcase whatever they are building, not just because we want to show a diversity, we want to click on a checkbox on a diversity checkbox, but as a leading innovators. So I think the best part about Bitcoin is that it's permissionless innovation. So now it's time for other VCs in this space to reflect that the capital is allocated based on innovation and execution, not just familiarity or a bias.
Okay. No, thank you so much. And one of the things that I noted here is that we should break away from doing things in a traditional manner and just try out new options, so that by so doing, we're opening up ourselves to different opportunities. Allow me to jump to Evelyn for a moment. You've built and scaled a multi-venture in Africa. from health to impact investing, what are the most critical gaps that need to be addressed for female entrepreneurs looking to build sustainable businesses?
Yeah. So I think like at least in my experience in working in Africa, I feel like there's like a lot of these kind of like training opportunities for women, or like these programs for new entrepreneurs to go to. But
Right.
the piece that I feel is then kind of like never followed up with afterwards is the actual money. So to me, like the biggest gap that I see is really just like limited access to early stage financing for female founders.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's great. And to Isabel, you've worked in both sides, helping to build tech companies and now investing in them. What are the biggest gaps you see in Southern Asia startup ecosystem when it comes to supporting female founders?
Honestly, the first and most important gap is that there just aren't enough female investors. And there aren't enough female investors, especially in, when people ask why aren't there more female founders getting funded, I always think the main reason is because there just aren't enough female investors. And that's honestly the reason why I moved from being an operator to a venture capitalist. Reason why I moved from being an operator to an investor is because when I was doing fundraise and going through investor conversations, I felt I didn't get to speak to a single female investor. And
Mm-hmm.
here in Southeast Asia, it's become a bit better the past few years. We're seeing, a few more female investors, but we definitely have room for a lot more, especially at principal, VP, or partner level. That really makes all the difference. Just having even just one woman in the team already makes such a big difference in how a fund views investments across gender. So yeah.
All right. I think I love what you say because you saw what was, I think, structurally wrong, and you took it upon yourself to do something in order to be one of those that are pioneers for change, in making sure that you redefine the space. You are part of the people that then make decisions to invest more in female founders. Allow me to ask, though, Southern Asia is one of the fastest growing tech markets, yet funding for women-led startup remain low. What are the practical steps female founders can take to stand out and secure funding in this competitive environment?
The number one tip I give to female founders is to just not undersell themselves. I feel like a lot of female founders already have an amazing business and, an excellent problem that they're working towards solving. Most of the time, it feels like when they're pitching, that doesn't come through as much compared to the male founders we hear from. I work with female founders a lot across the region, and sometimes I feel like when it's a female founder, they're kind of shy to share just the extent of how much they've done and how much impact they're making. And so the number one thing I remind our female founders is you can absolutely brag about yourself because you deserve it. So don't shy away from talking about how big of a market you're tackling, how big of a problem you're solving, and let that really shine through in the pitch. Because sometimes I think that kind of big vision is what's missing. And also want to echo what Vanessa said earlier about building your network. That's absolutely true. Most of the founders we invest in, we've known for quite a while. Conviction building, that whole process takes time, and at early stage anyway, you're backing the founder first and foremost. And if you're able to build a relationship with investors before you even pitch, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely. I think one thing that I am learning from this conversation is to just put myself out there a little bit more. I walk with more confidence. I love it because Vanessa said we are very good. We are competent. We are great at what we do. And you just confirmed it right now, Isabel, to say we don't speak enough about the work that we do. We don't show it enough that we are more than capable to deliver. We are deserving, we are worthy of that. And allow me to ask, Evelyn, you've raised over 250 million in funding, which is very impressive, by the way. Well, what's something no one tells women about fundraising? What are the hardest lessons you learned in securing capital? And what mistakes do female founders and entrepreneurs have to avoid?
Yeah, so I actually also like wrote in my notes like oversell yourself. You know, it's funny because like I find it a little bit frustrating so often that the conversation is like, okay, we as women have to be more like men in order to get money. And you know, I'm hoping that kind of as Isabel, you were talking about how more women are now moving into the investing space, and you know, I also moved into the investing space for the same reason that you did. You know, hopefully some of that will change, right? Where you're saying, okay, well, you know, you can act like a woman and have conversations like a woman and still get money. But for the time being, if you're, you know, if the status quo is to say you can raise $10 million and when you can actually only raise 1 million, then as women, we do have to, you know, lean a little bit in and sell ourselves a little bit more, you know, actively in order to kind of like just compete. And even though I will say that I don't love saying that, just to put that out there. The other thing that I've learned is like you have to be really clear in your funding requests, similar to what I think Vanessa, you know, said earlier about, you know, always having a pitch, your pitch ready. It's also about always having like your ask ready. So, you know, always being like, okay, well, you know, if I got $1 million, this is what I would do. If I got $5 million, this is what I would do. Because I feel like that's, you know, it's not necessarily asking for it per se, but it is, you know, being blunt about like, this is the, you know, this is what I would do with the money so that people can kind of visualize and get on board and like want to see you succeed. And then the last kind of thing that I wanted to like mention about, you know, what does no one tell you, and kind of like a mistake to avoid is I think that we as founders should be very picky with the money that we take, because I do think that taking money from a bad investor is worse than having no money at all. I personally have taken money from people that I would rather have just never had that money, because the pain and the hassle that they've ended up creating was worse than the benefit of getting money. So, you know, I think definitely as founders, you know, do your due diligence on the investors, find out if they're good to work with, ask around, and, you know, because yeah, they'll end up like wasting your time, and or bad ones will end up wasting your time, and then the good ones that you get, hold on to, because they also will help build your and get you in the future anyways.
Sure. You know, when you say that, I remember attending a climate change conference, and one of the facilitators spoke about the same thing as far as raising capital is concerned. And he said, don't just take every money that is offered to you, you know, be intentional about knowing whether this is really good money for you, because at the end of the day, the moment you take that money, that relationship is there for the longest of time. So in as much as we are so focused on getting the money, who we get it from equally matters. And I feel like that is one thing that is not spoken about enough, to say, okay, yes, we're looking for the money, but be careful of whose money you're taking and be intentional, be choosy about who you bring in your space. Dr. Kush, allow me to ask, you've worked at intersection of banking, venture capital, and Bitcoin. What are the distinct patterns in how males and female founders approach funding? Do women genuinely pitch differently, or is it a false narrative used to justify funding imbalances?
Uh, I mean, having worked across banking, venture capital, and particularly in Bitcoin space, in my opinion, the idea that women pitch differently is often an oversimplified narrative, I would say. The real issue isn't necessarily in how women pitch, but rather in how their pitches are perceived by investors.
Mm.
Operating, are they like, are they operating within historical male dominated network? Do they have bias, or are they open for, they're not gender biased, or are they open, or are they have like
Mhm.
the right metrics for everyone? But when it comes to the differences, what I have observed, in the approaches, it's like male founders, they have like aggressive growth projections, even with their numbers are aspirational, whereas female founders, on the other hand, they tend to present, more data backed forecast. Their numbers are more, the growth is more sustainable. But ironically, this realism, they are some it sometimes work against them. Sometimes VCs perceive it as, like, they're like, oh, this is not ambitious enough, this is not a hockey stick growth or a moonshot project. So they, like this is one of the difference. And then what Vanessa also mentioned, the venture ecosystem is largely relationship driven, and warm introductions plays a huge part in deal flow. So male founders who are more likely to be part of already existing VC network, they benefit from, quicker access to capital, uh, whereas female founders, particularly in Bitcoin and deep tech, they often have to build credibility in spaces where there are still underrepresented. It's a new technology, and if you want to get into this ecosystem, you need to know, whom to meet, and who build the right connection. So that takes time. And third, I would say is, when it comes to valuation, women-led startups often raise smaller rounds and give up more equity early on, so there is a value
Mm.
disparity down the line. Investors sometimes perceive, oh, women are being more risk averse in negotiation, which might lead to, a lower funding rounds compared to male-led counterparts in similar spaces. And but if you've asked about, like, if is this a justification for funding imbalances, I would say, uh, when you say, oh, women pitch differently, I think that is just an excuse for an VC to, ignore, like, the right, I would say, they're ignoring the metric they should be focusing on. There's lack of funding, but it ignores the deeper structural biases in venture capital. If VCs were truly data driven, I would say female-led companies, many of which are capital efficient and generate sustainable revenue, or, should be securing more funding, not less. But I know, but if we have to make a change, then I would say, as Isabel also mentioned, we need to have more female in this ecosystem. We need to have more female founders. We need more female check writers in any tech space, in fact, for that matter, and that will help shift the funding landscape. So at Lightning Ventures, we do try, and we actively, work to break down these biases by funding innovation and not gender. Firstly,
Mhm.
step is
Mhm.
ensuring more women-led companies receive the visibility and capital they deserve in, frontier industry. So for example, when I started in Bitcoin space, it was difficult for me to break in, I mean, because you don't know who to go to, like how to, who's the right person to approach to. But once you start going into conferences, start meeting people, then I think, when people start seeing you on different forums, you try to break those stereotypes, you try to present yourself in a better way, and then and if you get to meet the right VC firms, I think you're in the right hand. Like now your journey has started. And I think, as Isabel rightly mentioned, uh, we need more founders, we need more women in this space, and I think it's gonna change over the years.
All right, I absolutely get what you're saying. Um, as women, I don't know, maybe it's a confidence issue, like you said. We give up more equity much faster as compared to our female counterparts, to our male counterparts rather. So I think there are a few things that we need to work on in us, our ability to negotiate for our value, and really just ask for what we are worth, and not feel intimidated. So I'm
Absolutely.
learning a thing or two. Evelyn, this is directed to you. Many women in the African continent start up their businesses out of necessity. Then end up in the informal sector. From an investor's perspective, what must female founders do to transition from survival mode to one, scalable, to investment ready ventures?
So, most founders don't love my answer to this, but my answer is you have to do the boring stuff. And I can very much speak from experience here, because when I was running, founded and ran eHealth Africa, I mean, we scaled in the middle of like the Ebola response. We went from 1 country to 4 countries. My annual budget quadrupled, my staff quadrupled, and when I say we were in survival mode, it was literally survival mode. And once we kind of got, to start breathing a little bit, then we were able to kind of take a step back and say, okay, the only what we really need to focus on right now is the boring stuff. And that's what's going to keep us moving and keep it so that we can keep having the impact that we're trying to have, and kind of keep it sustainable. So when I say the boring stuff, I'm talking about org charts. I can't tell you how often, it's people don't have a good org chart. And org charts are just critical to the structure of a company. Job descriptions, same things. Everyone needs a job description. The finance policies, the operating policies, these are the things that of course, when you're starting up, you don't have these things because they're changing too fast. But if you want to talk about how you take that next level up, that's how you do it. You have to sit and you have to do the boring things. And the other kind of the other thing that I think is so important is you have to build a solid team of people around you. When you're starting up, it's generally you are the CEO, you are the CFO, you are you are the cleaner, you are the cook, you are the everything. And that's fine to start, but no one is going to give you money if you are the end all be all to a company. You have to have a really solid leadership team around you in order to scale. So those are the 2 things I would say.
Sure. Oh my goodness. You have just dropped a few bombs here. Be willing to do the boring stuff. I think the first thing is always working on the business, putting those structures in place so that at the end of the day, you then focus on scaling it. Because if you do not do this boring stuff, you're going to grow, but also fail quickly because you haven't put systems in place that will sustain that growth. It's more like pillars, a solid foundation in order to build a bigger and better company. Allow me to follow up with this question to say a lot of women struggle with balancing purpose and profit. You've worked in both profit, non-profit, and private equity initiators, private sector initiators. How should women entrepreneurs think about making money while driving impact?
Yeah. I would say I have actually met a lot of women who do not struggle with it. There are a lot of women out there who are very much focused on making that money. And I mean, because honestly, you can't have impact without money. You can't have power without money. I mean, like these are things that money unfortunately brings the capability to to drive change. And so if you're looking at your company, my suggestion, because we only invest in impact companies. But my point is like, the financial aspect and being financially sustainable is incredibly important. And if it's not, and if you're not, then you're not going to be able to have sustained impact. So profit is necessary for meaningful sustained impact. And they're not things that kind of like that clash together. They're things that work in tandem. And I would also just say that a lot of times impact and purpose bring profit, so they're completely intertwined.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying right there. Isabel, are you there? I just want to direct a question to you quickly. As someone who has been both an operator and an investor, what do you think women founders get wrong when pitching for businesses, and how can they refine their approach to match what investors are really looking for?
I think this was asked earlier, maybe, but I could just repeat what I said about not underselling themselves and making sure that they communicate the vision well and get investors excited about their business. I can also add that I think similar to what was said earlier, making sure you do your homework before you talk to an investor and making sure that there's a fit. There's, just a level of work that you could do before you reach out to make sure that the fund that you're talking to is in the right stage, right mandate, is this a sector they'd be interested in? And that's in your first call, right? But when you get, deeper down the process and you're about to accept a term sheet, maybe, then that's when you could do your own due diligence on the investor as well. I think forget that due diligence is both ways. Us as investors on them, but also them making sure they get the right investors into their cap table. So
absolutely. Oh, all right. In many cases, women are expected to build impact-driven businesses rather than scalable and high-growth ventures. Do you think female founders are sometimes held to different standards, and how can we push back against those biases?
Yeah, I think echoing what Evelyn said earlier, I've also met a lot of women who are just interested in building a really profitable, solid business, which is how it should be. It's very, very hard to pitch an solely impact-focused startup, and that's reality, right? Unless you're talking to a fund that's purely impact-focused too, then maybe it makes sense. So I think that in our case anyway, at Forge Ventures, where I'm currently part of, and in other investors in the region, we don't expect women founders to be impact driven. And this is a conversation that happens a lot here. I've been to a panel where they were asking, should women be impact investments? And that made me so sad to think that some investors would view backing of women founders and impact
Mm.
investment solely, and the only way really to break through that bias, honestly, is to just deliver an excellent pitch and build an amazing business and prove everyone wrong, and show investors that you were highly capable of building a great business. It's hard to break all these biases. There's only so much that we can do, and only so much female founders can do, but it really starts with just walking the talk.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Let's go to the chat session for a moment. Is there anyone with a question, especially to our panelists, while we're still here, as we're about to wrap up our conversation? So if you have a question for any of our panelists, in line with the work that they do, or how they manage to do it, and the discussions that we're having today, so please feel free to drop a question in the comment section, or simply just a comment to say, what is your key takeaway that you've had during the course of this conversation? Allow me to ask, Isabel, if you had one crucial, no-nonsense piece of advice to female founder raising capital for the first time, what would that be?
This is like my no filter answer. Whenever I talk to female founders and they're like shy in certain situations, I tell them, just ask yourself, what would a man do in this situation? Or specifically, what would a white man do in this situation? And they laugh, but it usually works, like in a simple networking, you're stuck in the corner of the room and you ask yourself, what would another person do in my shoes? And you go up to someone, you start a conversation, maybe end up with a meaningful relationship by the end of the night. If you're in a pitch and you're nervous, you're not sure about like how to, get investors excited about what you're building. You think about just how could I make this, sound like as big as I know it's going to be. So really just ways for us to break through our imposter syndrome and show everyone else that we're capable of building great businesses. Yeah.
Thank you so much about it. Thank you so much for that. I think the next time I find myself stuck, I'm just going to say, what would a white male do if they were in this exact same situation? I am definitely doing that. Sorry, I'm working, baby. Sorry about that. So I am definitely going to be asking myself that question more often. What would a white male do? If you did not write that in your notes, make sure that you write it in your notes so that you continuously ask yourself that question. Evelyn, if a woman, if there's a woman in the audience who's thinking about starting a business today, whether in health, in tech, or another industry altogether, what's the one piece of brutal, honest advice you would give them?
Yeah. So I think, I spent my 20s like really building my companies as a founder and an entrepreneur, and like really like went all in on doing that. And then, I'm in my mid 30s now and I have a young family. And I think, it's been very challenging doing both, having a family. I just saw your kid, come and talk to you. Mine, I could hear singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in the background earlier. So, it's been, for me, I've really struggled with kind of like trying to be the best CEO and the best entrepreneur that I can be, and also be the best mom and wife and daughter and everything. And I think like women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the best of both. And I think that there are probably women who have figured out how to do that, but I personally have not. And I think my the way that I've been able to kind of like move through it or try to address it is just trying to set more realistic expectations of like what I can actually achieve and what I can actually do. and then really build a strong team of people around me, both in my home and in my business, to make sure that we're able to do everything that we need to do. So I think for women specifically that are starting a business, you know, that's something to at least keep in mind. It's just setting expectations for yourself and getting a team there to help you, because at some point you're gonna, you know, you're gonna struggle, and you want to have that to kind of fall back on.
Sure. Oh my goodness. I love what you said. And I'm reminded of a speech I once listened to of Robin Sharma. And she says, I'm often asked the question, how do I do it? How do I manage to do it? And she's like, the moment you see me thriving in one aspect, I'm failing in another aspect. If I am doing late nights at work, that means I'm not reading bedtime stories to my daughter. And I love what you're saying to say, give yourself that grace to operate at each given moment, right? You can only prioritize one thing, or can only be doing one thing. In as much as we wear all these different hats, she just walked in, she's looking forward to a hug and all that. And it's like, not now. I'm going to do it, just not now. And I think understanding that, you know, and giving ourselves grace to say, you know what, we can do it all. We just don't have to be superwoman. There's a time that we focus on different things. So thank you so much for that. I just got tuned in for a moment. As for you, Dr. Kush, if you could change one thing about how venture capital operates today to make it truly inclusive for female founders, especially in Bitcoin and frontier tech, what would it be?
If I could change one thing about venture capital to make it truly inclusive for female founders, and especially in Bitcoin space, it would be reducing sometimes there's an unconscious bias, you know, and systemic barriers by implementing, I would say, data driven diversity and inclusion practices across the VC ecosystem. So when I say that, it has to any VC fund has to recognize that if you want to have like true inclusivity, it requires a long term cultural shift. It's not going to happen in a day, you know. And also we need to highlight and celebrate successful female founders in any field to inspire more women to pursue opportunities in these areas. And you know, as Evelyn mentioned, like and you also mentioned, like, I think we are by design super women. We need not to be apologetic about anything, even I mean, I think we are a superior species compared to our male counterparts, and VCs just need to see and judge purely on our merit, and we need to create dedicated networks and platforms that connect female founders, like what we are having a conversation now. We'll be connected over the LinkedIn, so that's how you keep on building the network. And this would help address the you'll have the warm introduction problem that I mentioned earlier. You will surpass that, and where many female founders lack access to key decision makers, that will be really taken care of. And also, I think every VC firm should publicly report the gender and diversity breakdown of their portfolio companies, so that when I am reaching out to a VC firm, I clearly know, okay, as a founder, should I be reaching out to them? Do they back up or they support female founders or not? And also this would help the VC firms also to have a diverse investment commitments, including women, to ensure a broader range of perspectives when evaluating startups. So there's not one single thing that needs to be changed. It's an ecosystem that needs to be changed around. And I think if we have more VC firms and more grants coming up to support, because there are several countries where they have the mandate to support women entrepreneurs. Singapore is like one of the countries that really is really at the forefront in supporting women entrepreneurs. So we need support from all strata of society, actually, not just because when you want to really work, you need help from all across your ecosystem. It starts from your home, basically. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think that is absolutely amazing. I'm in the chat section right now and I'm seeing some of the questions that are popping up. We've low-key managed to answer them during the course of our discussion, like why female-owned businesses are funded less. I think most of the speakers covered on that to say we need to stand out more as female-led businesses. We need to network more. I think that is one of the issues that Vanessa managed to tackle at the very beginning. So before we say goodbye, allow me to ask you to stay tuned to the Women Code on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Young Women Code, to stay informed on any of our events and future events that are to come. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Let's continue the conversations beyond the seminar. Take action and support the incredible women driving change in the investment and entrepreneurship space. But before we officially wrap it up, I'd like to invite all our speakers and attendees to tune on their cameras if you can for a quick group photo. Let's capture this moment together. Pause for a few moments, allow the participant, let's pause for a few moments and allow our participants to switch on their cameras so that we take a nice group photo. I think we were able to capture that. Let me just confirm for a moment with the team. Did we manage to capture our group photo? I'm seeing everyone has their cameras on. Okay, thank you so much, ladies, for joining in today. This was more than just a conversation for me. This is us taking bold steps in creating the future that we want. And I'd like to thank the organizers, Young Women Code, for this. And I'd like to say thank you to all the speakers that said yes. For me, that is one thing that I always thank you for saying yes. You could have been somewhere, you could have been doing something, but you said yes to this call. This is you pouring into other women. Destinies are being changed. Minds are being opened just because of your yes. So may your companies continue to grow in size, in profits, of course, and in funding. So thank you so much, ladies. See you on the next seminar that we're going to have. I don't know if we have some closing remarks from our founder, Deborah Ann.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you so much, Evelyn, and thank you so much, Dr. Kushbu. I think Isabel just left, and Vanessa. So thank you so much, Isabel and Vanessa. I'm sure you're gonna see this video. So it's been an incredible discussion. When I came up with this idea for International Women's Month, investing in women, I said I wanted us to have like some sort of FaceTime where we would have very, very candid conversations about investing in women. And you guys have taken time out of your day to speak with us, and we are incredibly grateful. We would also like to apologize for the interruption, the ad break, and the other stuff. So we're so sorry about that. we would also like to bring up the Elevra Labs. I'm sure you saw that this session was powered by Elevra Labs. In our course of taking action for investing in women, we've decided to come up with our platform called Elevra Labs. And Elevra Labs is basically a platform where we can help women, mentor these women, give them resources, and provide them with funding. And we're calling everybody in this call to be a participant. Whether you want to be a mentor or speakers, or you want to fundraise for your startup, you can apply for Elevra Labs today. It's going to be linked in the comment section. But our speakers, our moderator, we're looking to partnerships so that we can help these women, because we don't believe that women lack talent or innovation. We just believe that they lack access to resources. They lack access in general. So whether it's access to funding, whether it's access to mentorship or access to networks, they lack access. One of the speakers here said that the problem is not even in, I think it was Isabel that said it. She said the problem is not even that like there's a VC gap in Singapore and Asia, but the problem is that there are not that much female founders. So many women are even afraid to take the leap, which is why we're bringing in Elevra Labs so that we can help these women. So don't be afraid today, ladies in the in the audience. If you want to raise money for your startup, if you have an amazing idea in the healthcare industry, we have Evelyn here, and you can reach out to her, or you can reach out to us, apply for Elevra Labs, and we would see how best we can help you, because we're here for women. So thank you so much for taking out your time to attend this session, and we'll see you another time. Yeah, bye.
Thank
Bye,
you
guys.
so much. Goodbye.